right, so it's 11, so we're officially starting the workshop. So head on over to blockdevelopercookbook.com, and you're going to go, oh, sorry, get used to this. This is going to be me saying, oh, didn't mean to do that. Go to conferences, click on WordCamp Europe 2025. I've already logged in, but you'll be presented with there'll be a login screen, and the password is Basel 2025, all lowercase, all one word. And then when you're in here, all you have to do is just read through the recipe descriptions and vote on the one that you want. You'll notice over here in the top right that as we add recipes, we'll see the amount of time that is remaining. We have about 75 minutes in this workshop, so vote until your time is filled up, and then as we vote, we should see some votes. People are already voting, so this is going to be updating. We'll do this for, I don't know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes until people stop voting. And yeah, so if you have questions, raise your hand. Questions are welcome at any time. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And someone will come around with a microphone for you, just so we can get the question on the, do you have a question?
What's the password again?
Oh, yep, sure, no problem. Password is pay attention and write it down. Just kidding. Oh, is the Wi-Fi not?
No,
Oh, okay. Perfect. Yesterday at Contributor Today, I was having a small panic attack because I couldn't get connected to the Wi-Fi at all. So this entire workshop relies pretty heavily on the Wi-Fi. So hopefully it stays with us for the 75 minutes. So that's the password that you're going to need to log in. Has everyone got a local environment that wants to code along? We're all good along there. If you don't, let me know. Like I said, I have some USB keys that have the repository as a zip, and we have some installers for Studio and an import, so you can just get up and running pretty quickly. But if everyone's, not a single person has raised their hand. Yep, you need a USB key. You need, is that a question or? Yeah. Okay, sorry. What's the question? Yep. You're not yet
installed.
Oh, okay. So on that USB key, there's pretty much everything that you need. So there's a repository that we can work with. And if you just want to watch, that's cool too. You don't have to code along if you don't want to, but if you want to, you should be able to get everything off that USB key. And let's see where the voting is. Oh, managing team members. All right. Oh, one of my personal favorites, Interactive API gallery slider. Well, they're all my favorite, but it's like my kids if I was super nerdy. So unfortunately, we're probably not going to be able to do them all today, but one of the cool things about this is that these results will be available. Like once the workshop is over, they'll be available so you can go back and see which ones we voted on. Also, with an account, you can actually add the recipes to your, what I'm calling cookbook. I'm really going in all the way with the chef analogy. So you can come back and do these at your own pace. The recipes are step-by-step instructions, so you don't even need me. You can do this entirely on your own. So. Basel 2025. BASEL 2025. So I will warn you in advance, if you've ever seen me live code, I will break at least 2 of these recipes as I go along, maybe more. We'll see. But that's kind of the fun and learning how to debug and sweat profusely in front of 100 and some odd people while you've made a mistake because of a typo. So that's how I live my life. Everyone's good for setup and we're all good? Okay. Silence is good, golden. And like I said, questions are welcome at any time. Even if I'm in mid-sentence, just throw your, oh, sorry, computer went to sleep. Just throw your hand up, someone will come around, and we can. Marco's got a question.
Yeah, so should we check out the repository to plugins directory?
To the WP content directory, because there's themes and plugins. Well, if it's a fresh install, you're just going to be replacing the default themes. There's a theme in there. Okay, well, it's the same repository, so you can just git pull if you want. Yeah. We have a repeat visitor here from the last time I did this was in WordCamp Asia. Marco was there for that, so thank you. Yeah, I hope so. It's exactly the same content, so you must be getting something out of it. Yeah. Well, there's a new one that I just added. It's called the meme generator, and I'm excited about that one. It's the concept of these recipes is that I wanted to show some kind of real world practical thing. So coming up with like concepts, So and who doesn't love memes? So right now it's pretty far down the list, but you can always go back and get it yourself. All right, we got about 4 more minutes, I guess, and we'll see what we start with. So far, this is great. Cool. Oh, Interactive API Gallery. I feel like a race announcer when I do this. It's all right. Pardon me, sorry. Three minutes left. Unless, if you're still voting, maybe raise your hand because we can start right now. Unless people are still voting, there's no rush. But so no one's voting. We're all good. So I can. Okay. So we have a winner, the Interactivity API Gallery slider. So I'm just going to go here and finalize it. I'm going to turn voting off. That's a little behind the scenes there for you. How do I get out of full screen? That's all. Okay. Cool. So let's dive into it. All right, so I have set up locally. I'm using Studio, and this is exactly what is on that USB. If you need it, whatever local environment you're using is no worries. You can use whatever you want. But I just have a site that I'm just going to use to start creating some content in here. So let's look at the recipe that won. It is the Interactive API Gallery. So we're going to find that one. This is one of my favorites because I love the Interactivity API. Here we go. Oops. So every recipe is built like this. Like I said, you can go back and do these on your own whenever you want. They're always available. There's a setup section, which I'll just explain once. I'm not going to do this for every recipe, but so there's 2 ways that you can install this code. You can use the create block package because there's a template for each one of these recipes. If you're using the repository, there's separate instructions. There's a little npm script called prep and then whatever the name of the thing is. So it's all in there. Now I've pre-installed all of mine just in case the internet failed on us. So let's jump into the code. So in here, it is where is it? Gallery slider, thank you. Okay, so each one of these is going to install a plugin, and so this is completely self-contained. So let's look at and see what we got. So the first step is, can you read that okay? Should I zoom in, out, good? Thumbs up if it's good? Okay, thank you. All right, so the first thing that we need to do with the Interactivity API is we need to tell our block that it has to use the Interactivity API. So that's done in the block.json file. So we're going to open block.json, and we're going to add some functionality. So in your source directory, you'll see a block.json file. It looks like this. It's pretty pretty straightforward. The recipes will scaffold a lot of this stuff, so we don't have to work through all the basic scaffolding stuff. We're just going to concentrate on sort of what the flourishes are, the things that are very specific to this. So if you've installed this, you will start with these files. You're going to add a couple of supports in here. I think I already have supports in there, so I'm just going to grab that. Jump over here. Oh, I don't. So we're going to add a supports. And there's the first typo of the day. So this is the most important part. You have to tell the block that it needs to support the Interactivity API. The other two ones are just some alignment things because we're doing a gallery. So we're going to save that. The next thing that we want is to add a view script module. So if you're familiar with block.json, there is a view script property, and that tells the block that when it's loaded on the front end, it needs to load this JavaScript file. The difference between ViewScript and ViewScript module is the way that the files are built. So the Interactivity API generates its front-end module as a quite literally a module, a ES ECMAScript module. And so it's built in a slightly different way. So that's why we have ViewScript versus ViewScript module. So they have very different use cases. So we're going to add a reference in there. I'm just going to copy all this. There's a lot of copy and paste in this. So thank goodness you don't want to watch me type all this out. So we have that. And then the other two things that we have to do is we have to update or add our build and our start commands. So and this is done in package JSON. So we're going to grab that. Our package JSON file sits right here. And so we have a build, and then we have a start. And so this is how we generate the files for our block. So if you're used to using the scripts package or building any kind of like modern JavaScript inside of WordPress, this stuff won't be new. There is a slight change in here from recent. There's a block manifest thing, but I'm just going to replace that and see what happens. I'm curious to see how that's going to work. Anyway, so the build process. Oh man, I need to format those better, I think. There we go, and we already have start. I'm just going to delete that. You know what? Since I released this particular one, there's been some changes. So I'm wondering if that other flag is going to cause problems here. So we're going to see. We're going to do some live debugging. So now that we have this in place, we are able to start building our block using the npm run command. So inside of our gallery slider, we're going to open it up in the terminal of your choice. I just closed the one that I opened. Awesome. Do this. I'm going to say npm start. That's going to build our files. So now we're in start mode, which is kind of like a dev mode. So it's going to be constantly watching files, looking for changes. When it sees changes, it's going to recompile these, and it's going to put everything out into our build directory, which is in here. Lots of fun stuff going on in there. Okay, so that's kind of step one. So now we're going to prepare the render.php file. So in the Interactivity API, you're going to want to be using dynamic blocks in the sense of they use a render.php. They are rendered on the front end, sort of live using PHP. So does everyone know what the difference between static and dynamic block is? I guess raise your hand if you don't. How are we going to do that, maybe? Does anyone not know? It's such a horrible way of explaining that. Okay, so we're going to look at our render.php, and it's going to look something like this. I'm just going to close this down so we don't see it. So we have very simple. So we can actually see what that looks like. We're going to over here to here and install plugins, and we are going to activate the plugin, which I am never going to find this as on my gallery slider. Yay! Okay, there it is. And then we're going to do a post. I'm going to call this gallery slider, and then save that. Now I should have a gallery slider. Right, so there's nothing there to see, which is cool. So let's see what it looks like on the front end. So on the front end, we've just got these little buttons, and that's sort of the basis of it. So we're going to work in the block editor and in the front end, and we're going to be making iterative changes here. So the next step is, so the other thing that we have to add in order to tell the block that it is an interactive gallery, or sorry, an interactive block, is that we have to add this directive. This is a very important thing that we do, because the directives are how we tell the interactivity things about this block. So if you're not familiar with what a directive is, it comes from, there's a bunch of JavaScript frameworks that kind of do this. So a directive is like an imperative way of defining relationships and being able to bind nodes to things in our data store. This will all become much more clear as we work through it, but basically without this and without the block.json defining interactivity true, the block won't become an interactive block. So the value here that we pass is the name of our store, and we're going to talk about stores in a little bit, but this is basically the store namespace that's going to be active. So this won't do anything on the front end. We won't see any changes there. It'll still look exactly the same. So let's just move on to the next one. Right, okay, cool. So now we're going to define our store. So we're going to open our view.js file in here, view.js, and oh, it's already there, okay. So we have our store. So the important part about the store is that this is how we connect what we just did in render.php to our JavaScript store. So if you're not familiar with the concept of a store in JavaScript, it's like Redux-like. Basically, it's a big JavaScript object that keeps track of things, the state of our store, of our application. So when we're defining a store using the Interactivity API, we import the store function from the Interactivity package. And then it takes two parameters, the name of the store, in our case, gallery slider, and the second parameter is an object of things. So there are three recommended items. These names don't have to follow this convention, but this is sort of the recommended convention. So we have state, which is an object of variables that can change, right? We have actions, which is something that happens, which is a silly way of saying that, but it's not the same. Like so, and then we have callbacks, which is also stuff that happens. But the difference is an action is usually something that the user has done. So for example, click a button. That would be probably stored under actions because that's user-based. Whereas callbacks are more kind of like programmatically called. So for example, if you wanted to have something happen when the block loads, that's not something that the user initiates. That's more like behind the scenes. So we would keep that inside the callbacks object. And it's, like I said, you don't have to do this, but this is sort of the recommended approach. You could call these literally whatever you want, and it'll work as long as you access them correctly. And I'll show you how to do all that. This little debug thing down here is just a tricksy way of being able to console log out this stuff because it's actually wrapped inside of a proxy and all of this. There's a question over here. Sorry, just 1 second. We're just going to get questions on mic so the recording picks them up. Yeah.
I want to ask, is this store just similar to what we have in React or other JavaScript frameworks? Or
concepts are similar.
Similar.
Yeah, it's not Redux-based. It's actually the Interactivity API uses Preact behind the scenes. There's some stuff like with signals in there. There's some really magic JavaScript that I will never understand in my entire life behind the scenes. So, but the idea is similar. Like you will always have an object that represents the current state of your application. In Redux you have selectors, which is kind of what state is. So state manages your selectors. And Redux has got actions, so that's why we're using actions. So we dispatch actions, but there's no concept of callbacks. It's all kind of the same in Redux. But yeah, it's similar conceptually with some subtle differences that I don't fully understand, so I can't even tell you about them. So cool, great question. Thank you. Okay, so next. So now that we have this, I'm just gonna go with it. So now we have this concept of state versus context, right? So what we want to do, So what we're going to add some state to our state object, and we're going to want to start with the current slide. So because we're building a slider, the first slide will always be the first slide. It'll always be current slide is 0 in this case. Apparently I'm using array indexing numbers. And then we're going to create our first action, and this is going to be something that the user is going to implement. Oh, I have to get state out of there. Let me just jump this. So one really cool thing about the store is that what we can do is we can create state and then destructure it out of the object immediately. So now we have access to it in the other in other functions. So what this is creating is a function that will increment the slide by 1. Okay, and so that's what this is going to do. So, sorry. So the issue here is that we are managing this at the state level, rather than, and I'm not explaining this well. Let me back that up. So if we were to have multiple, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I were to do console.log state.currentslide, right? You know what? I'm going to do it after I increment it, because that would make a lot more sense. And it's not log 9, it's just log. So if I run this and I come over in here, open this up, console, sorry, that's probably not nearly large enough. We should, oh, I know why it hasn't worked. Okay. Anyways, let me just talk this through and then we'll talk about it. So the idea here is that every time someone clicks next slide, it's going to increment slide to the next one. Well, if we do it in state and we have 2 sliders on top of one another, both those sliders will be incremented to the next slide, even though I only clicked the first one, because state is global and it's across every instance of it, whereas context is instance specific. Does that make sense? So, yeah, okay. I got the guy nodding over there. Nice. Okay, so that's where you can get in trouble with this, is because you want to have something that's very specific to an instance, but it's stored in state, and so all things get the state. All copies of this block will have the same state. So the way we get around that is by using context. So let's see. So okay, we're gonna create some context for the block, and we're gonna pass it to it on the PHP side, because when the block is rendered, we need to have that state available to it immediately. And so we do that on PHP, because then the JavaScript loads and then it can connect and all that fun stuff. So we're gonna jump back to our render.php and we're gonna generate some context. So in here, I'm doing, I'm just creating an array by merging a bunch of other things. So this is the attributes from the block, and this is sort of some starting stuff. So we have an empty array of slides. We have a current slide is going to be 0. We have the total slides going to be 0, because we won't know what those are until the block is loaded. And then the next part is we have to give the context to this particular block. And we do that using a special function called data_wp_ something or other. What is it? Oops. Data context. So what this will do is this is going to generate a bunch of context for us, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second here. I have to make sure I save that file. And then if we jump over onto the front end, what? That's not right. WP context. Oh, great. Okay. Did they change the function name on me? Let's see. There we go. Thank you. Yes. Someone needs to update his recipe. I mean me. All right. So we're going to change that. I should have. Oops. Context? There we go, WP context. There we go. Yay! Great success. Okay. So this very easily to remember long name function is going to do some cool things for us, and not fire an error, hopefully. But if we inspect this now, zoom that in, we should be able to, where's that block? So I'm going to inspect that so we can get in closer. Okay, so if you can see, is that zoomed in enough? Okay, so you can see that we have this data-wp-context attribute assigned. And so that's got our slide, it's got our current slide, and it's got our total slides. And so this is done by the Interactivity API using that stuff that we just did. And so now it's available to us as context. And so context, is, like I was saying before, is instance specific. So even though every instance of this block will start with the same context, it will be updated individually as we move forward. Any questions about this? There's a lot of like theory stuff here. So if I'm just not making any sense, please let me know. What is going on? All right. Okay, so now we're going to change the active slide. And this is going to be, so we're just going to replace that in there, go back to our Vue.js. We're going to add these things. So this is going to be a previous slide and a next slide button. And then we have to connect those buttons to our buttons in the markup. So the first step is we're going to create the function that needs to be called. In our case, we're just going to console log some things for now. But the important part is we have to actually connect that to the block when it's rendered. And we do that with more attributes, or sorry, directives is what they're called. So if you're playing along at home, you're probably already ahead of me on this. But what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the rendered.php. Close that. So in our previous slide button, so we have these two buttons. So we need to connect the previous slide to the previous slide function, right? So we do that again with another directive. And the directive is data-wp-on-click. So that seems like a really random name. I will explain what it means because in HTML you can have a data attribute. If you've ever used jQuery, you probably know that very well because everything was stored in DOM that way. So the prefix is always data-wp, and then the next part is the actual directive. And so in this case, it's an on. So this means any event that happens in like any DOM event. So think of it as the function name is on, and the parameter that we are waiting for is after the dash. So in our case, we're waiting for an on click, and when that happens, we're going to connect it to actions.previous slide. So we have actions.previous slide. And so now if we run this, I'm going to be nervous about this every single time. Let's just see. Okay, console, and nope. Oh, sorry, because I clicked the wrong button. So anyway, so every time we click this, now we have some basic interactivity, right? So that does literally nothing for us. So let's move on to the next part, which is we're going to add to the next slide as well. So the next slide's it's exactly the same thing. We're going to add the data on click here, right? And we're going to add it to the next slide. So I'm just going to copy and paste that down there. And this is going to be next slide. I think it's called next slide. It's called next slide, right? So if I refresh this now, if I'm moving too quick, just let me know. We should have a next image, previous image. So we've got basic interactivity, and we're done. We can all go home. Okay, cool. So now that that's working, let's actually make some changes. So back in our JavaScript, we're going to use the context of this particular block because, like I said before, if we had 5 galleries, we don't want clicking on the top gallery to change all the galleries. We just want to change the one that we're looking at. So we're going to use context to manage that. So we're going to replace some of our code in here. We're going to get rid of this. And I'm going to use this get context. Oh, I think I have to import it from the store, get context, yeah. So this is a function that, as you can probably imagine by the name, gets the context. So this is going to give us everything that was defined in the context of our block. So we can console log this out to take a look at what that does, and it should match the stuff that we defined earlier in our render right here. So everything defined with this should get spit out. Should. let's see. So far, my track record with this is not great. So let's just see, which one was it? There it is. Oh, there's the proxy again. This is annoying. So we're going to use my debug log thing that we had down in here. Right? So we're just going to, this just wraps it up and just makes it much easier to look at. So if we click this now, we can see, okay, great. We've got current slides, and total slides. And this has got everything that we need to now start working with this instance of the block. So we can, so in this case, I'm retrieving it. I'm just calling it CTX. You can call this whatever you want. It's a weird way of saying context. And then this is going to decrement the current slide by 1. So now that we've refreshed it, now that we've done that, we should see that our current slide is set to -1. And the next slide will be set to -2, and so on and so forth. I don't need to demo that many more times. I think you get the point. So let's do the same with the next slide. So it's exactly the same idea. We're just going to replace this console with with getting that. I'm going to get rid of this debug log, and now we can move the slide back and forth as often as you'd like. Okay, so. Okay, so so now that we can change the slides, what we have to do is we're going to want to we're going to create a new binding to actually move the slides. So in our render.php, there's a slides container div, and we're going to add this transform slides. Is it slider container? Is it the one I want? Slides container. There we go. So we're going to add that directive there. And so this isn't going to do anything for us, but what this is going to allow us to do is connect a transform property to this particular div. So this is like we're binding this to the style attribute, and it's basically like a CSS transform. And we're going to connect that to the current pause. So there's going to be some math that I'll show you in a second. This sounds super complicated, but it's really not. Okay, and so once that's in place. So the WP style binds to a given CSS property. So you can do this with any property. And if we look at that again, you can see that we have this double quote, or sorry, the double hyphens. And that's kind of I think of it as function and like parameter for it. So like we're going to do something with a CSS style, and this is the property that we're going to affect. So that's where that dash dash, if you see that, you know it's the property that you're going to be actually binding something to. So now let's define the get current pause, the current pause function in our store. So in our state, we're going to create, where is this? So inside of state, we're going to create this thing. This is a JavaScript getter function. And what all this is going to do is this is going to return to us. This is how we're going to connect. So anytime something changes in the state, this is going to be updated. So what we're doing in here is we're going to bind that function, the current pause function. We're going to get rid of this one in there, to the CSS style, the transform property of this div, and this is going to return the value of that property. So we're going to translate X, and it's going to basically move our slide left and right. So really, really simple slide transitions. So if we jump back over here now, we should be able to refresh this and click. Oh, it's undefined. What's undefined? Oh, current slide wasn't defined. All right. So now you can see we've got our current slide. So if we multiply that by 100, it will move it in a certain percentage, and it'll go off the screen. There's not much to look at yet, but we're getting there. Stick with me. We'll be all right. Cool. So yeah, so the get keyword is important. This is, like I said, a JavaScript getter. And I kind of explained it in a little bit more detail here. And so what are we doing in here? So, okay. Okay, cool. So we're going to add some more directives to our buttons, because what we want to do is we want to disable buttons if we've run out of slides. Or like if you're at the first slide, you shouldn't be able to go previous because there is no slide ahead, right? So we need to do some of that cleanup work. So we're going to do that by adding a couple more directives to our buttons. going to come in here. Now, I'm going to start organizing it like this so we can see this a little better. We're going to start seeing a lot of directives in here. So this is, again, we're binding to the disabled attribute. And so binding is literally, I'm going to connect that attribute to whatever is returned from my store. So this is going to be a new function that we haven't defined yet called no previous slide. And then we're going to be doing the same with, sorry, where'd that go? With the next button. So we'll just grab that attribute, or that binding down here. Right, and so we're going to say state.noNextSlide. So this is going to handle whether or not we can move this around. So in our JavaScript, we're going to add a couple more getters. And we're going to come back in here into our state, and we're going to add a couple more getters. So this concept is referred to as derived state. So when you have a state item, or even context, and you create other state from that, it's the term is derived state. So what we're doing is we're creating we're going to return Boolean values based on the value of current slides. So you'll hear that a lot. Like if you had two properties and you wanted to concatenate them together, you need to derive that state from other state. So, anyways. So now that this is in place, we should have the connection on the front end. So if we refresh this, I'll clear this. So you see, now this is nice and grayed out. This is like the most visually stimulating part of the show. And then, so now, so we can keep clicking this because we haven't actually defined the upper range yet. So, but if we were to start going backwards, you can see the numbers, they're going down when we get to 0 or 1 or whichever one, now that disables. So now we've made our first really, truly interactive part of the Interactivity API. Gallery slider. Any questions so far? Maybe I'll just pause, ask for questions. I feel like I'm either boring everyone or you're getting it so well that, no, it's the boring thing, isn't it? Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, cool, so, what am I doing here? Oh, okay, cool. So we can test our upper range by just coming into our render and set the total slides to like a random number. So I'll set it to 5, and I will immediately forget to set it back, and we'll be debugging that. But so now if we get to 5, we should see disabled. So we know that works. So yay, great success. Okay. So now let's talk about initializing the slides. So to do that, we're going to use, basically this block is going to support other blocks. We're going to have the cover, the media text block, and image blocks, because those are probably the ones that make most sense inside a gallery. And what we can do is try to count the blocks using a query selector, but we're not going to do that. We're going to have the slides initialized themselves. So when a slide has been added and the block renders, it's going to tell itself, I have X number of slides. That's going to be the easiest way to do that. So to do that, we're going to create our first callback. And it's going to be called init slide. So I'm just going to copy and paste this over, and then we'll talk through it. So in our callbacks, we're going to add this function called init slide. So what this is going to, I have to import get element. Every time I see a red underline, I get all panicky now. Okay, cool. Okay, so this init slide is going to be called when, as you probably guessed by the name, when the block is initialized, when it's first loaded. So we're going to be getting the context from it. We're going to get a ref to the slides array, and then we're going to change our, every slide is going to do this, and it's going to initialize itself inside the context. So when the slide loads, it's going to get a reference to itself, which is what this part is, and it's going to take the context of the block, and it's going to add itself as a reference to the slides array. Does that make sense? So if you remember when we defined our context, we have a slides. It starts out as an empty array. So then we have access to it from the get context. So get context.slides, and .push is just a JavaScript way of adding something to the end of an array. And then we're going to take the total slides, and we're going to set it to whatever the length of slides is. Clear? Cool? Awesome? Okay. And then we're going to return this. I'll explain this in a minute. But basically, this is kind of wrapped up inside of a use effect. Is everyone familiar with use effect in React? Yeah? Cool. Okay, cool. So when you return something from a use effect, what it runs when the component unmounts or when it re-renders. So when this slide, if this slide is removed, we want to adjust our slides array length by 1, because we like if we had 10 in there and we kept adding them and then we started removing them, if we didn't add this, they would never remove themselves. So we'd still have like 10, but there's only maybe 2 slides in there. So anyways, so that's just what this magical code is doing. It's just saying we're storing the reference, and if the reference is not equal to this, then we're going to filter it out. And anyways, it'll look cool in a second. Don't worry about it. Okay, and so the init slide is going to be bound to each inner block of our main block, right? And so, to be able to add this, we're going to want to use the HTML tag processor. Has everyone used the HTML tag processor? Has anyone not used it? Is that a question? Or you've used it? Nice, it's awesome. It's so cool, the stuff you can do with it. It makes this kind of work like so easy. And you do have a question. Okay, sorry, there's a question. Sorry. I asked a like show of hands question, and you're like, yes. And I'm like, okay, is that a question or is it?
In the lines before, you set context total slides to the slides length. Shouldn't this be updated if the slide is removed as well?
No, because that's a good question. I don't think so, but we'll find out. I don't think so. Am I handling that in a different way? That's an excellent question. Thank you for calling it out in front of everyone. That's amazing. No, I'm kidding. No, it's a really good question. I think that I do access the total slides later, but you make a very good point. It should probably do it. So I'm going to leave it out, and if it breaks, I'm going to put it in, and then I'm going to blame you. So. Cool. Okay. So we're going to use the HTML tag processor inside the render block. So there is a hook or a filter that's available called render block that allows you to modify the block as it's being rendered, and so we're going to use that to inject some things into this block. So I'm going to just grab this whole chunk, and we're going to put it into the main. Where am I going here? Into the main plugin file right here, which is where your hook should go. So this is how we're registering the block, so I'm just going to add this, and there's a lot going on here, but just ignore the fact that I don't have PHP-CS installed there. And let me just make this a little easier to read. So this is going to act, so the render block allows you can do render block for all blocks, or you can do it for an individual block, right? There we go. And so the name of this block is the Block Developer Cookbook /gallery slider. So that's how I'm just accessing the render for this particular block. And then this is the function. So there's a bunch of things going on in here. We're going to have a list of allowed blocks. And then I'm going to get all of the, I'm going to initialize the tag processor using the block content, which is passed to this hook. And then while I'm going to do a while loop for every tag that it finds. And so if the tag is one of these allowed blocks, basically it's going to be like a div, and if it's going to have a class of one of these blocks, then we know that we're in the cover block or the image block or the media and text block. Sorry, was there a question? No? Okay. And then we're going to set some attributes. And we're going to set we're going to take that core block, and we're going to add the data WP interactive directive to match the store name that we've already defined. And then we're going to add this new one called data WP init. And so init is a directive that is basically when the block loads. And then what we're going to do is call that init slide. So this is the equivalent of like a use effect. So if you were to set up a use effect to do this, you'd have the use effect hook, and then you would set your dependency array to be empty. Does everyone know what I'm talking about with that? So it just loads the first time, once when the block is initialized. And then we're going to return the updated HTML from the HTML tag processor, and then we're going to return the block. So what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to take core blocks and get them into our store. And so we're doing that through the WP Interactive. Now, I do believe in the more recent versions of this that we don't actually have to define the interactive directive on the child blocks, because any child component of a block, of a div, or sorry, of an element that has this will actually inherit this stuff, but I'm just doing this to be very verbose, because sometimes it might not work. Cool. So now if we run over here, we should be able to inspect this now. Oh, I haven't put anything in there. This will never work. All right, so let's refresh this. And there we go. So we're going to say gallery slider. I'm going to insert, let's do the cover block. We're going to do this and write some text. I'm going to hit save. So we should see the cover block getting thrown out there, and we do. Cool. So if we inspect this now, sorry, come on. You see we have cover block. Yeah, so this is the cover, no, sorry. Where's the cover block? Oh yeah, sorry, I'm sorry, it's right here. So you see we've added our data WP init for the slide, and we've got gallery, a slider, so we can see that is this going to work? So let's add a little console log in here. So we can, I just want to make sure that this is called, so console.log, I'm going to say called, and then we should see that this gets run, and it didn't get run. What? Callbacks.init. Let's look. Callbacks.init slide. Oh, there it is. It just didn't build, I guess. So this is going to be called for every single instance. If we add another instance of like another block, we can just go in here and add another cover block. I don't think that actually went where I wanted it to. No. So we have one in here. We can do this and write some more gibberish, and we'll see we should have 2 blocks in here. This should get called twice, so it did. It got called twice. Now, it's not actually doing anything for us yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there close. How much time do we have? Oh, man. We're going to get through one of these things, aren't we? Sorry. Okay. I'll try to go a little faster. Cool. All right. So, okay. So we've done that. Any questions on the interactivity? The HTML tag processor? Anything that we've seen so far? No questions? Okay. Okay, so the block attributes. Okay, so in the edit.js, there is a toggle control for continuous mode, right? So this is going to allow us to just rotate through the images rather than have like a disabled option. The buttons will just take us to the beginning instead of getting to the end. That's what I was trying to say there. So we still have this, and so what we need to do now is we need to have, we're going to add some more detail to our next and previous image. So and for the sake of time, I'm just going to paste it in and talk through it real quick. So previous slide, next slide. And there's a naming issue there. Oh, sorry, next slide. Cool, so again, what we're doing here is we're getting the context, and we're checking to see if ctx.continuous is true. So the reason that works is because if you remember, when we set our context, we actually get access to the block attributes. So in render.php, there are some globalized variables, and attributes is one of them. So this is the block attributes, and we've created that in our block.json, which we have right here. We have an attribute called continuous, and it's going to be of type Boolean. And so that allows us to get access to that in the context by passing that in, right? So now it's just doing a check. It's if it's continuous and slide is equal to 0, then we're going to set the current slide to whatever the total slide is -1. and so on and so forth. So this is doing some logic to make sure that we can continually click those buttons, basically. So if we refresh this, we have double buttons, which is super fun. So as you can see, we get to click that all the time. All right, so let's go to the next. Man, this screen. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So we can add some keyboard support. This is just a good demonstration of using more directives. So on the main wrapper div, we'll add this in the PHP. So the wrapper div is, where are we adding that? Okay, so let's see here. So we'll add this in the main wrapper div, which is right here. We're going to add another directive. Sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. So what this is going to do is allow us to use our keyboard to move stuff around. So again, we're doing a WP on. This is on a document level event. So when we're using our keys, it's triggered at like sort of the page level. And then we're going to do this actions.onKeyDown. So we're going to create the actions. Where am I? On KeyDown, right here. We're going to put that in our Vue.js. All right, so this is going to be, again, and we need to get, like I said before, you can get state out of here, but you can also get actions, and you can get the callbacks as well. So what I'm doing is we're defining our store. There's an actions object in there. We're going to destructure that out, so now we have access to it in other parts of the store, so that's what we're doing here. So we're going to say, we're just going to check to see which key it was. If it's the arrow left or the arrow right key, we're going to act accordingly to move slides where they need to go. And then we'll refresh this, and we should see, oh, actions.nextImage is not. It's previous slide, not next image. Let's try that again. Okay, so if I refresh this now, we should have, there we go. So, and so you see we have it actually working there now. So, sorry, the wrong thing. So there's only 2 slides, so there's not a whole ton of cool stuff to show. Yeah, but this. Oh, I have 2 slides. Oh, that's just, there we go. It's my first day with WordPress. Thank you. So yeah, so so you're clicking this and it's happening. You like take my word for it. I'm pressing the keys right now. Yeah, so that's kind of the end of it, I guess. Let me just see if there's anything else we have to add here. And that's kind of it. So that is the first and looks like maybe the only recipe. I think we can do maybe another one real fast. But any questions about anything that I just rambled on for about an hour? We got a couple questions over here. I hope I haven't bored you the entire time. Just watching me code badly for an hour.
Just where can we consult these attributes to add like the on-click?
Oh, yes.
method?
So where can you get that reference?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So if you go to the Block Editor Handbook, so go to developer.wordpress.org, not news, and you can go into the Block Editor Handbook right here, and just do a search for the interactivity. It's the first time I've ever spelled that right. And is it in the package? No, sorry, it's not in the package. It's probably in the reference. Directives. Sorry, there's a bunch of pages for this. I think it might be actually this one. Docs and examples. So, why am I having such a hard time finding this? There we go. So this is the page that you're going to want to be looking for. It's under Reference Guide, Interactivity API Reference, the API reference, and they're all listed down here on the right-hand side. Now, there's a lot of directives. You can do basically anything that you would need to do. You have access to it. Because a lot of these things, so like the bind directive, for example, you can literally bind any HTML attribute to that. So I've yet to run into a case where there's something we didn't have the tool that we needed for it. Great question. So you had a question as well, right? Okay.
Hey, so you had 2 sliders at some point.
I did. Yeah.
But you didn't have any images in the first one.
That's right.
So I'm wondering how it works with several sliders on one page. Because
sure.
quite often the problem is with the arrows. That's the arrows on one slider is changing the stuff on the second one.
Well, if you remember, we did talk about that, but yeah, I'm the gallery. So gallery slider. So we'll add this in here, and I'll add, let's see, images. Do I have anything in the media library? I do. Let's do that. I don't know what this is going to look like, but we'll add, and then we'll add let's add a text and cover block just for the sake of testing. So we'll save this, right? And on the front end, on the front end, we should have 2 things. So when I click this one, just that one moves. When I click this one, just this one moves. And so that's the difference between state and context, and that becomes very, very important. Like, I don't know how often you'll have multiple sliders on the same page, but I mean, having that concept is really, really important. Yeah. We have a question over here.
Hi, I have a question about the key down.
Yep.
You put it on the button?
No, I put it on the wrapping container
or that
for
you
the whole
can
block.
click on the image, like you give the image focus, and then with key down,
Yeah, so
you go to the next image.
Yeah, if I have this one focused, does it work? Oh no, it's doing both. Ha 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 ha! Found a bug. Good job. Because there's only one key down event. Like when you hit the key down, it's on the wrapper for the individual thing.
It's on the whole wrapper.
It's on the wrapper for the whole block. Yeah.
Okay, including the buttons for next and previous.
It's wrapping the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay.
You can put it wherever you like.
That's, I think, a WCAG violation.
It's a what? Sorry.
That's, I think, an accessibility
Oh,
violation.
it very well could be.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm not an expert on that. If that is really bad, then I would happily update this to do proper accessibility. What I wanted to do was have it listen for the key down event in any context. So thank you for calling that up. I will do some research to make sure that I'm setting a good example instead of a horrible one. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for questions? I think we're done, right? We're done. Oh, it's a question over here. Oh, I still have 15 minutes? Sweet. 50 more minutes of...
So is there a way to also achieve interactivity inside of Block Editor, or is it
No,
only
not yet.
front-end
It's
specific?
only the front end right now. There was been some experimentation around that. It's complicated, very, very complicated. And the majority of times where you're going to be using this, you won't need that in the back end because you're very rarely, like, I guess if you're in a template scenario, you might want to see what the slider will look like, but it doesn't, like, to click on the buttons and stuff inside the block editor might be more problematic than it's worth. Like, you probably want a visual representation, and you can absolutely do that on the edit side. But like the definitive answer is no, it will not work in the block editor. And the other more nuanced question is, like, what do you need it to do in the block editor?
So I understand that for now you decided as a team.
Well, I didn't
on
decide
the,
anything, but yeah, it has been
interactive,
decided. Yes, I put my foot down and said no.
The current view on it is that it's probably not going to happen.
I don't know, actually. I've spoken with a lot of the folks that work on it, and we've yet to really kind of have a definitive, oh yeah, this would absolutely solve this problem, because it's meant to be a front-end experience. It's meant to replace having to do complicated JavaScript libraries and things like that on the front end. And we don't really see a need for it too much in the back end yet, but maybe. I mean, it's a very new API. I don't think that the answer is it will never happen. The answer right now is it doesn't work, but maybe in the future. So yeah, thank you.
I've done something like this in the past, and if you really want to, you can get a kind of visual representation of the slider if you check if the block is focused in the block editor and then switch the view to something that looks more like the front end part. if the block element is not focused right now, and if the editor clicks on the block, it will switch to a more like edit mode for this specific block.
Yeah, exactly. You could do something very similar. So there is the block gets an is selected property. So you can check that, and based on whether or not it's selected, I won't show this because I'll just inevitably break it, but you can control what is output in here. But in this particular case, like the Interactivity API also needs to have the server be part of it, because those directives are actually processed using the tag processor and the HTML API framework, and that's how it dynamically creates those directives. What's really great about it is that because we do it on the server side, we have access to all the hooks and filters and everything inside of WordPress. So that kind of falls apart inside the block editor because we don't really have that PHP part. So there need to be a lot of work to kind of get that happening. But yeah, thank you. Great questions and great suggestion. The other thing that I do want to just mention again is that if you are logged in and you're interested in any of the other 90 ones that we didn't get to today, you can actually come into all the recipes and you can click this fun little icon and it'll add it to your own cookbook. So you can come back and I mean, there's only 15 recipes, so you can probably find the one you want anyways, but just if you have a list that you want to work on.
Here.
Yes, hi.
Yeah, I just want to ask if you can have like a kind of another image, like mobile image inside the slider, not just the cover image, and then render both of them, depends of the size?
You can do whatever you want, basically. You have access to all the markup, like with this particular thing. So this instance doesn't support like the mobile stuff. It was just to show it sort of a basic, well, a more complicated, like a slider is something that people have to build all the time. So but you could absolutely take this and you could modify it to look for mobile and do some responsive things and all of that.
Okay, but you can click another block that is called like mobile image, and you can integrate with this as well.
Oh,
so the final user can use one of them, and then you can interact with the other one.
Yeah, so this block specifically has a inner block. So there's inner block instance, which basically when you're building blocks, it's a component that allows you to insert other blocks inside of it.
Yeah.
And so what I've done in here, and we didn't talk about this because we already ran out of time, but what this is saying, this is only allowing these 3 blocks that I want to work with. But if you have other blocks and custom blocks as well, you can absolutely modify this to insert those blocks. You could put whatever you want in there. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Oh, another question over here. Just give this man a mic. You can just hold on the whole time. No, that's fine. I'm just kidding. It's all good.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if in the case of like this content that should be displayed based on screen sizes, or would you recommend to use like Ajax to load content dynamically, or do you see?
Sorry, use what to?
Ajax.
Annex?
Ajax.
Ajax. I'm sorry.
Ajax.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, my ears
Ajax.
don't work. I'm sorry. I was at karaoke quite late last night, so I can't hear a thing.
So use Ajax
Yeah,
in
you
order
could do
to
that.
load content dynamically, or do you see another approach?
Well, with images, there's a lot of things that you can do. Like if you have a really image-heavy site, you could have the images load in lazily. Like if they're not inside the viewport, then there's no point in seeing them. Have them load in. Yeah, so you would need something like Ajax or API fetch or whatever it is that whatever framework or library.
Will the proper place to put that will be in the callbacks?
Yeah. Yep, exactly. There's actually another recipe in here that does something similar, where it does like a fade-in effect. It doesn't do the lazy loading part, but it takes the image, and as the image scrolls in, there's like a, whether or not it's in the viewport. So and that's done with the Interactivity API. So you can do all of that, and then it's just a matter of like, in that callback, what do you want to do? So yeah. Actually, let me see if there's a. Is this the one? No. Recipes. Are there any other Any other questions? Just 10 minutes, okay. I don't know if we're gonna have time to do another one, but maybe I'll show what we were just talking about here, if I can find it. The simple fade in effect. So this recipe does exactly what we were talking about. So on the core block, on the core cover block and the core image block, what we're going to do is we're going to add a class. We're using the HTML API just to add a class to that dynamically, because these are core blocks, so we don't have access to the core code. But in the oh, you know what? It's just adding a class, and the class is handling it. There's something going on here. Let me look. So there is a JavaScript file in there. So what is simple fade in effect? So let's look at the source index. Oh, you know what? I'm not using the Interactivity API, but I absolutely could. You could absolutely do this on whatever browser event is fired. Like in our case, I'm not doing that at all in here, but you can absolutely do it inside of that. So,
can I ask?
Yep. So yeah, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I see on the internet a lot of people using, when you're creating Gutenberg blocks, they're creating for each block one plugin.
Yep.
And is there practice, good example to see multi-blocks in one plugin?
Sure. Yeah, it just works. That's the short answer. So if you were to have a plugin with, if you're using the scripts package, it is pre-configured to look inside your source directory and find every instance of a block.json file. And if there's more than one, it will compile all those blocks.
Do you know good examples to see?
Good examples. Yeah, I have some examples, but it's very, you can literally do this. Let me just show you here. So I'm going to create a new folder in here. I'll call it block 1, right? I'm going to take the, oh wait, is this a block? No, this isn't a block, sorry. So our gallery slider. So I'm going to just add a new folder, and we'll call this, whatever, block 1. I'm going to put all the stuff in here. There's a bit of setup that you have to do. That didn't move. What am I doing here? Come on. So we're going to put that in there. I'm just going to copy this, call it block 1, block 2, right? And so what this will do is if I restart my build process here, which is not, there we go, clear that out, and npm start. You should see that in our build directory now we've got block 1 and block 2. I apparently got a whole bunch of block stuff going in there. So now it's actually compiling each one of those blocks separately. And you don't have to do anything. There's no adjustment to the Webpack, no adjustment to any of that sort of stuff. Scripts package just figures it out. Now the other thing that you'll have to do is when you're initializing your blocks, you'll have to come in here and you'll have to point to the new directory. So it was, what was it, block 1, and then slash, let me get that other way, block 2. Or, sorry, block 2. So that's the only thing that you'll have to do.
When I made like this, I faced a problem with the translating.
With translations?
Yeah, with the local translation.
That's interesting. Okay, were you registering your translations in the plugin?
Yes, in my .pot files.
I don't see why that would be. So in a plugin that I maintain, I do have a, let me just see what that looks like. Where's the fires? Nope, where did I do that? Sorry. Here's in the JavaScript. I think you do it in JavaScript, now that I think about it. Let's go variations, index.
You mean you already putting the transition in JavaScript?
Well, you can allow your plugin to be translated. Maybe we're talking about two different things. I don't know why you would have problems. So what was the problem that you're having? Like it wouldn't load the
It's not
pot file?
loading the transition. For example, if I have Arabic language or Russian or Korean, for example, it's not loaded.
That's really strange. Maybe we can talk about, like, maybe you can show me.
I don't have the example. I tried 1 year ago.
I don't have an example of loading a pot file on this computer. The example that I was thinking of was allowing your plugin to be translated by other folks. So like if you release your plugin on the plugins repository and you mark it for translation, then people can like upload different language files and it works, but not specifically loading a pod file. Yeah, I think I'd have to see the setup to kind
Maybe I
of.
have some problem there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll be at the cafe thing, wherever that is after this. So, cool. 5 minutes. Awesome. Is there any more questions? I can give you back 5 minutes of your day, or we can talk about everything. There's a question way over there. Thanks for the question, by the way. That was a good one. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. So I find the Interactivity API very interesting, but one main concern that I have, why would someone go that way and not just use the Vue.js file and go with the traditional, let's say, JavaScript?
It's a great question. So the reason you have to use, so the Vue.js is totally fine. Now, if you're just doing something that's fairly straightforward, it may be the right solution. Where the Interactivity API really shines is complex state management, which you probably won't have unless you want to load like Redux or something, or like do all that. But the Interactivity API really helps with state management and having the bindings be reactive. Like, so you make a change and everything just responds to it. That's one of the sort of key tenets of it, is that if you remember, like working with jQuery and all these other libraries, not to throw shade on them, but if you made a change, you had to go and create logic inside your application that managed all the different things that needed to change. Maybe you had to change class names or data attributes or whatever. The Interactivity API just kind of listens and responds. So you create the binding that gets whatever the current slide is, and then if anything changes that slide, it just handles it, and handles it very elegantly. Does that sort of answer what you're saying?
Yeah,
and you use the Vue script module because the file is compiled as an ES module and not as like a standard JavaScript file. Like its way it's enqueued is slightly different. Does that answer?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very cool.